Most people buy a rental property backwards. They fall in love with the house first, then they try to make the numbers say yes. I do it the exact opposite way and it saved my clients from some very expensive mistakes. So let's say you found a property, it looks great, the photos are beautiful, you can already picture guests loving it. That right there is the single most dangerous moment in the whole process. Because once you want it, your brain quietly switches jobs. It stops evaluating the deal and starts defending it. It'll bend every number, explain away every red flag, and talk you into a yes. And it happens to smart people constantly. It has nothing to do with how good you are with money. It's just what wanting something does to your judgment. My whole job, honestly, is to be the person who doesn't fall in love with the house. I fall in love with the math or I walk away. So let me actually show you how I pressure test a rental before I ever let a client write an offer. In the exact order I do it because the order matters just as much as the steps. And this is the same process whether it's your very first rental or your fifth. The very first thing I check has nothing to do with money. It's the rules. Can this property evenly legal be a short-term rental in the first place? And this is the step people skip constantly because it isn't fun and because they assume that if other Airbnbs already exist in the area, it must be fine. That assumption has cost people real money. Short-term rental rules are set city by city. They vary a ton from one city to the next. And here's the part that really burns people. They can change at any time. I've watched investors fall in love with property, run gorgeous numbers, get all the way emotionally invested, and never once check whether the city would even allow this strategy the entire deal depends on. So here's how you actually check it. You don't ask the listing agent, and you don't ask a Facebook group. You go to the city's actual rules in writing for the specific address, and you confirm your plan is allowed today, knowing that it could tighten tomorrow. I always tell my clients, you better have a plan B. If the rules don't support your strategy, nothing else on this list matters. That's gate number one, and it's a hard gate. We do not move forward until it's clear. If it clears, then I go to the numbers. And I mean the real numbers, not the fantasy versions somebody handed you. Let me tell you what I mean by that, because this is where most people get hurt. A property that's marketed to investors will almost always come with a projected income number attached. And mortgage calculators will happily spit out a rosy figure. And both of those are best case dreams dressed up to look like data. I don't use them. Instead, I pull actual comparable rentals in that specific area and I look at what they're genuinely earn. Not the one superstar listing at the top, the realistic middle of the pack. I want the honest nightly rate, the honest occupancy, and what an average month actually looks like, not a perfect July. Then I run every real expense against that number: the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, the cleaning, the supplies, the software, and management. And yes, I put a management number in, even if you swear you're going to self-manage, because your time is not free. And someday you might want to hand it off, and the deal has to survive that. Then and only then, I look at what actually is left. Because a property that cash flows on the back of a napkin and a property that cash flows after real expenses are two completely different properties. The gap between them is exactly where people lose money they thought they were going to be making. Then I look at the competition and the saturation because your numbers do not live in a vacuum. How many other rentals are already fighting for the exact same guest in that area? Is this a market with room to breathe or one that's already crowded and racing itself to the bottom on price? Here's how you get a feel for it without any fancy tools. Go search that area like a traveler would for a normal weekend and just count. Are there 10 options or 100? Are they all discounting to stay booked? This matters more than people think because a property in a hungry market with light competition can carry a mediocre setup and still do fine, while the exact same property in a saturated market has to be genuinely excellent just to keep its head above water. I need to know which fight you're walking into before you buy your ticket to it. If there's an HOA, I read it, and I mean actually read it. The real document, the fine print, not the friendly one-page summary, because an HOA can quietly end a short-term rental strategy in a single sentence buried on page 9. And I have seen buyers discover that only after they have closed, when it's far too late to do anything but eat it. That specific gut punch is completely 100% avoidable. You just have to read it before, not after. Every time, no exceptions. And last, I look at demand and specifically who the demand is. Is this area pulling short-term vacation guests? Or is it actually better positioned for midterm traveling professionals, healthcare workers near a hospital, students, people relocating for months at a time? Here's a quick self-check for you. Can you name the 3 types of guests this property could realistically serve? Because here's something that surprises a lot of first-time buyers. Sometimes the best answer for a property is not the strategy you walked in the door wanting. Sometimes the numbers quietly point to midterm or to running it as a hybrid, and that shift is the entire difference between a stressful property you're always babysitting and a boring, dependable one that mostly runs itself. Now, let me tell you the mistake I see most, because it's one that quietly wrecks otherwise smart buyers. They run the numbers one time, a good scenario, feel great about it, and stop right there. I never stop there. Once I've got the honest numbers, I run them again on a bad year, fewer bookings, softer rates, a bigger repair nobody planned for, a slow season that runs a month long, because the real question was never, does this work when everything goes right? Anything works when everything goes right. The real question is, does this still survive when it doesn't? If a deal only works in the perfect version, that's not a deal, that's a bet. And that is exactly why the rosy projections a seller hands you is worth almost nothing. It's the perfect version built on purpose to get you to the yes. And there's one more thing people forget entirely, and it costs them. The ramp up. A brand new listing with 0 reviews does not perform like an established one, not for the first few months. It books slower and it books lower because guests trust review and you don't have any yet. So I budget for that slow start on purpose, because the owner who assumed month 1 would look like month 12 is the same owner who panics in week 3 and starts slashing their prices before the property ever got a fair shot. Plan for the ramp. Project the deal against a bad year, and you'll actually make it to the good part. So that's the whole thing. And notice the order, because it's deliberate. Rules first. No point running numbers on a deal that cities won't allow. Then real numbers, not fantasy numbers. Then competition and saturation. Then the fine print. Then demand and the right strategy for it. By the time I tell a client, yes, buy this one, it is not a hope and it's not a vibe. It's a decision that 2 of us can both stand behind with our eyes wide open. And here's the honest reason I love this part of the job and why I built my whole business as a one-stop shop. I can help you find the property, run these exact numbers on it, get it set up once you close, manage it once it's live, and sell it down the road when you're ready to move on. Same person for the entire life cycle, so nothing falls through the cracks in the handoff between 3 different people who don't even talk to each other and don't have your back the way one person who knows the whole story does. So if you're looking at a property right now and you want a real honest read on whether the numbers actually work before you fall in love with it and lose your objectivity, send it my way. I'll run it through this exact process with you, step by step. The link's below. Let's find out together whether it's actually a good deal or just a really good looking one.